This week's video is all about these electric hookup cables and some of the things you need to think about and consider to make sure that you take good care of yours and avoid some of the unnecessary risks that we sometimes see on sites. Welcome back to Matt with the Morleys, your channel for all things caravanning and getting active with the kids. Bringing you tips and tricks to get the most from your caravan and inspire you to get out there. Now obviously your electric hookup cable has a lot to deal with. It is the main supply from a bollard when you're on site to your caravan. Periodically you should check the cable for wear and tear. Any abrasions, any nicks in the outer insulation will render the cable useless and you should really be looking to replace it then. Now our cable is connected permanently to the caravan, and as such we do see a little bleaching of the outer insulation. That's no real cause for concern. There is no damage done other than a bit of bleaching of the colour from the insulation, but the cable is in an absolutely perfect condition other than that slight discoloration. If it gets any worse, obviously we'll monitor that and we'll look to replace it as and when we need to. Now thinking about safety on site, we use this, our electric hookup cable is coiled, as you can see here, and that really is for neatness and being tidy really, for when it comes to packing away and putting in the car or in the caravan. It's pretty much the first and the last thing, that gets connected and the last thing that gets disconnected before we either leave home or leave site. But it's really important to remember that when you get on site and you get hooked up, that you fully uncoil your cable from one of these if you actually have it plugged in. And why would that be? What's the reason for doing that? Well, obviously as we draw current through the cable will heat up a small amount, and if that cable is tightly coiled around something like this, that heat has got absolutely nowhere to go other than stay in the cable. So that constant heating effect, the cable can get very hot, and as such, in worst case scenario, can melt and cause a fire. If we think about the sort of time of year when you're likely to be drawing the most current, that's generally going to be in the winter. If you imagine you've got a 2000 watt heater with a 230 volt supply, you're pulling just over 8.5 amps just for your heater. Other things to add on top of that, you've got the charging facility for the battery, you may be running some lights, any sockets, water heater, those sorts of things. All these little things add up. So if you've got, say, a kettle on as well, it's more than likely you're going to be pulling pretty on the maximum capacity. But there is some things that we can do. So if we just take the lead off the reel and loosely coil it, I'm not saying not tightly wound around it, but if we loosely coil it and leave it on the ground, it'll be absolutely fine. Don't forget we've got air passing over the cable, whereas there's absolutely zero chance of that happening when we've got it coiled up on the reel like so. So this is absolutely fine, but this is obviously what we want to avoid. Now another thing we want to look at as well is how we leave the cable coming from the post. We don't want to obviously have it coming diagonally across like so and potentially cause a trip hazard. Now if you've got kids like we have, it's worth speaking to them just to say, kids, let's make sure we're not running around all the pitches. There's guy lines as well as electric hookup cables that are a trip hazard, and we don't want to be ripping those out of the wall. So just a word of caution, not trying to be the fun police. And that just about brings us to the end of this short one. So if you liked it, hit the thumbs up, hit subscribe if you've not already done so. Drop us any comments of any horror stories maybe that you've got on electric hookup cables. It's amazing the amount of times we see on site where cables are still wound up and in some respects quite unsafe. If you see somebody, maybe just drop them just have a quiet word in their ear. Hopefully if you approach it in the right manner, you should be greeted with, oh, thank you very much, I hadn't even realised. If you maybe word it in a slightly different way, you may get a bit of a hostile reaction, but it's worth telling somebody just to say, have you thought about unravelling your electric hookup cable? If not, go and touch it and see if it's warm. If it's warm, you know, the potential is that you're going to damage the inner layers of insulation. It's going to short out and potentially catch fire. That's worst case scenario, but we want to try and avoid that if at all possible. Hit subscribe if you've not already done so, and we'll see you next week for another video. before you go, our next live will be March the 28th at 8:30 p.m. So hopefully we'll see you there. We've got a big trip to Scotland coming up, which we're very much looking forward to. We'll be doing lots of filming and recording for that. So hopefully we'll see you on the live next week. And for now, take care and we'll see you soon.